Hey, this is Dominic Pruitt. I want to show you how to extract block performance data from IBM Spectrum Control version 5.2.8 using this web interface. All right, so just real quickly to let you guys know that I'm using the version 5.2.8 interface, updated dashboard here, 5.2.8. Where I need to go is I need to go to block storage systems. And once I go to block storage systems, anytime I see a performance tab, I can get to performance data. Right? And so now I see the performance data here for 5 different storage systems. And so the graphical view I see here actually shows you the 2 different metrics here. And so what you need to do is, if you want to extract performance data of a single subsystem, first of all, you actually select a single subsystem, which will then cause that graph to only render that data. But we're only looking at 2 performance metrics here. In order to get more than 2 performance metrics, we'll have to switch the view. But before we switch the view here, I want to change the timeline to a week's worth of data. So if I go to the 0 hour of, let's say, Sunday last week, and I want to go to the Sunday of this last week, and the 0 hour, if I do the update, there we go. So we now have a week's worth of data for this Spectrum virtualized system from Sunday, January 10th at 0 hour to January 17th at 0 hour. We're at the sample data resolution level. Let me go ahead and change that to an hourly sample, at least for right now, and I'll switch back down to sample just to prove something here. All right, so now we're looking at the data hourly, but we're only looking at 2 metrics. If we want to see more than 2 metrics and extract that out of Spectrum Control here, we toggle the chart, and so now we have a tabular display. And the reason I selected hourly, at least right now, is because it extracted 169 items out of the database for this storage subsystem at the high level. This is across the whole Spectrum virtualized cluster. And by default, it only shows total I/O rate and overall response time, which are analogous to these 2 metrics here. But I can show more. So here are the choices that I have to show more performance data for this one system. So I can show read I/O rate, write I/O rate, read data rate, write data rate, total data rate, read response time, write cache delay percentage, overall host attributed time percentage, status type, model vendor, performance. So let's go ahead and just kind of go through all this. Because we're extracting the data, we want to pull not only the name but different performance metrics here. And I'm going to finish clicking out all the choices here. So now I have all that data. So remember that by default it'll come up and it'll only show you just the 2 metrics that were in the graphical list. So now I have performance data by hour for a whole week, and then it's breaking it down by the time. So if I change the time range here to the oldest first, then we'll see January 10th at the 0 hour. We should see the performance metrics of this one subsystem, and then as each hour goes by, we'll see the change in performance numbers for total I/O rate, overall read write, all the different metrics here. So again, 169 items, not a whole lot, but the point I wanted to show is that under the hourly one, we can extract the data. So actions, export as a CSV. One of the things Spectrum Control will do is give you an automatic file name based on, you're looking at performance, the date, 2016-120, and then the time. It's 9:34 in the morning here when I'm doing the recording. I just do a save file, and it'll take a little time to save it. Okay, this time it didn't take much long at all. Again, it was only 169 records. But here's the thing is that I have a saved performance data. This doesn't really tell me exactly what I'm looking at, so maybe what I want to do is I want to go ahead and rename this file. So I want to basically say Spectrum Control version 5.2.8. The storage system I'm looking at is Spectrum Virtualize 02. And then I'm looking at the whole storage system. And then I need to break that down to what I'm actually looking at. So I want to label it by hour, and then for 1 week. And I could go ahead and put the date in here if I wanted to. I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. So now I have a CSV file. It's not too big, 33K in size, has a number of records. If I open it up, I open up Excel, you'll see that there's, a number of rows in here, 1 to 170. But if I expand each one of these columns, you'll see that I have a whole week's worth of data by hour. So January 10th, I have data, the 11th, the 12th, and then of course, all the performance metrics that we selected before. We have name, time, total I/O rate, overall response time. So that's how you get the data out of Spectrum Control. And then we're at the granularity of the by hour. If I wanted to, I could change this to say, okay, by sample. And the thing about by sample is we'll only graph 5 different sets of data. And it'll take a little bit of time to actually pull that data from the Spectrum Control database. But when it does, you'll see the number of selected items here increase because we're pulling by sample, and I believe that the sample interval for Spectrum Virtualize 02, this resource, is by every 5 minutes. And so, instead of 12 data points per day for 7 days, we're getting 5-minute interval data, per hour for the day and then for the week. And so that's kind of why this takes a little bit of time to pull it through. And once we actually get the data, we'll see, okay, Spectrum Virtualize at January 10th at the 11th minute of the new day on the 10th. And then after that, actually at the 0th minute, and then 5 minutes later after that, then 5 minutes later after that, and we have a total of 2,015 items here. So we have significantly more data than we did before of the 100 and some odd lines of data. But the same thing applies. Export as a CSV. It'll come up, it'll give you the name, performance, date, time. My recommendation is that once you download it, it'll take a little time to download and to rename it to something meaningful. All right, we'll give this a little bit of time to finish downloading. It's going to take a little longer. Again, there's many times more data that is in the CSV file. Okay, looks like it's been downloaded. So if I go back down, which kind of causes me to stress the renaming of these files. So Spectrum Control version 5.2.8. Virtualize 02, storage system, performance. Now, of course, we're going to change this to by sample. I usually indicate a 5 for 5-minute sample data, and then for 1 week. And then, of course, you can put the date as far as what specific week. I picked a week back in time. What's reflected in the file name is just the current timestamp to keep every single saved CSV file unique. And so if you were to come back 1 second later, it would create a brand new file, and as long as you have storage for that, then that's not an issue. All right, So now I've renamed the file. I can go ahead and open that in Excel, and then we'll see that there's a vast amount more data in this. There we go. Again, the same performance metrics. I rate overall response time. Now I got my granular by sample performance data. And if I go down the whole list, I have 216 entries, including the title row. So that's really about it. That is how you extract data out of the web user interface for Spectrum Control version 5.2.8. Thanks for listening.